Hi, everybody. Welcome to our new show, our brand new show.
The Brady Bunch Hour.
And I'm Greg Brady, singer, dancer, musician.
Greg.
That's my mom. Great little singer and a beautiful human being.
Greg. This is not the One Brady Alone Hour. This is the Brady Bunch Hour.
Is Mom trying to tell me something?
That's how a beautiful human being tells you to shut up.
Well, she's still a great little singer.
Everything's new tonight. We have a new show.
And we have a new year.
1977.
Yep.
And he didn't even peek at the calendar.
I wish I had a new sister.
I wish I had a new girlfriend.
The country's got a new president.
Jimmy Carter.
2 in a row. Isn't he amazing?
How would you like a new face?
I wish I had a new girlfriend.
That's the second time you've said that.
I know. I want 2 new girlfriends.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Brady Bunch.
Hello, I'm film historian Tony Maeda.
And I'm Brad Shreve, who's just a guy who likes movies.
We discuss movies and television from Hollywood's golden age. We go behind the scenes and share our opinions, too.
And of course, being the average guy, my opinions are the ones that matter.
As does your self-delusion. Welcome to Going Hollywood. Well, this is a big day here on Going Hollywood, Brad. Don't you think so?
I do think so, because the individual that we have as a guest today is an award winner, but there's an award that is even bigger that they don't realize. And that is their novel was the first audiobook I made it all the way through without falling asleep. It was so engaging.
Yes, he is. He's a writer. He's a comedy writer. He's won a slew of awards, including 2 Emmys. He's a songwriter, an actor. He's worked with everyone from, I believe I have this right, from ABBA to Zamora. Also, Bette Midler, Cher, David Letterman, Billy Crystal, Robin Williams, Bob Hope, Lucy, hello. He's been on Broadway, played himself on The Simpsons, and last but not least, for 4 years, he was the center square on Hollywood Square. So it's almost too much for our humble little show. But he's here with us today. I'm so excited. Please, everybody, welcome the fabulous Bruce Vilanch. Welcome, Bruce.
Actually, it wasn't 4 years. It was a little while. For 4 years, I was on Hollywood Squares, up in the squares to the left of Whoopi, if that's possible.
Oh, my God. I already screwed up.
So that doesn't matter. I mean, it could have been illegal information or something like that. But I was on around there 6 years. But they made me, after she left, they made me the center square briefly. And then Ellen came in. So.
Oh, ruins everything.
I remember that period. It was only good when Bruce was in the center square.
Well, no, it was funny when Whoopi was, because I was the head writer then, too. So.
Well, regardless of the square, we are so happy that you're with us. Thank you so much for taking time. We want to discuss so many things, not the least of which is your wonderful memoir, as Brad mentioned. It seemed like a bad idea at the time, which I believe is coming out in paperback. Is that right, Bruce?
It is out now in paperback. Yes, indeed.
Fabulous.
And audio.
On audio, on Audible, I listened to it. Brad listened to it.
More people listen to it than read it, because I think they enjoy listening to me when they're stuck in traffic.
Well, it's fun to listen to you.
Yeah,
like you're in the car with us. I mean, it's
yeah.
wonderful.
Here I am.
But one of the reasons we wanted to have you on, besides talking about your fabulous memoir, is we want to talk about what you talk about in your memoir. But Brad and I are starting this new series of the summer, kind of like for lack of a better title, Bad Movies We Love, or Bad Movies that we just like to watch.
Guilty pleasure.
There you go.
Yes, guilty pleasures. And we had to start with the king of them all, which is, of course, Can't Stop the Music.
Oh, yeah.
So I would love to talk to you about it. But I know that Brad, as Brad said, he read your entire memoir just recently. Like how recently, Brad?
This past week, walking back and forth to the beach, a couple of days.
It's amazing. It's amazing. What I love about the memoir, Bruce, is the fact that you pull no punches, which I'm not surprised about.
Yeah.
Tell the people a little bit about the structure of the memoir and what it seemed like a bad idea at the time is.
It arose during COVID from podcasts. Like, when everybody was on lockdown at home, there were all these people starting podcasts. And, I was locked down at home too. So I was on them talking about my fabulous career. And they were all asked me about these pieces of shit that I did before they were born. And they had encountered them on YouTube and on the internet. And they were things like the Star Wars Holiday Special and the Paul Lynde Halloween Special and the Brady Bunch Variety Hour and the Rob Lowe Oscars. There were a whole bunch of these things that were disastrous pretty much at the time. And how did they know about this? Well, it was on the internet. And of course, they wanted to know how these things happened, who said yes, and have they paid their debt to society? As I was doing these, I thought to myself, well, this is kind of a half-assed memoir about how I wrote the worst television shows in history and a few other things and survived. Because I'd been, at the point in my life where I thought, I could do a memoir now, but everybody does a memoir. I didn't want it to be like anybody else's. And so I thought, well, nobody's going to admit to all of this crap. So that was how it formed. And the title came to me right away. It seemed like a bad idea at the time. I mean, that's always the first thing to think of, but then they told you how much you would be paid, and suddenly it was an interesting idea.
And just do it.
Yeah, let's do it. So that's how the book evolved, and I'm amazed to find out that. Now it's drawn more people to those erstwhile pieces of shit that are still on YouTube, except the Star Wars Holiday Special, and none of this stuff has gone away. I mean, one of the reasons that I led the book with Star Wars and the Brady Bunch is they are two franchises that you can't kill. There have been 800 iterations of each of them. So while I'm talking about stuff that happened in the Paleozoic period, they are all current. They're still dishing it out, and so and that kind of gets people into the thing. But that's how it all happened. And nobody's criminal in these things. It's just that everybody is working, working for the money and knowing that this may or may not work out. And as I always say, a lot were done in the 70s. And when people tell you they remember the 70s, they weren't there.
Exactly.
But most of these things were concocted in clouds of smoke.
And in the past, were studios and executives willing to take bigger risks, or was this a 70s thing?
Yeah, yes to both. I mean, in the 70s, even the major studios were courting independence because the studio system had broken up. But always, executives are always afraid. You have to find the executive who's willing to make a leap. And so some of these things were considered nothing could go wrong kind of thing. Star Wars, great. It's hot. Brady Bunch, whoa, terrific. They've been a hit. So and then it was a bit more freewheeling then because the major corporations hadn't taken over. And multinationals were not, the thing. They weren't. Nobody in China was getting mad because you were making a movie about them.
Well, we talk about a lot of classic TV on this podcast, and certainly the Brady Bunch Variety Hour, I think, qualifies as that. I know it has a special place in Brad's heart. He definitely wanted to talk to you about that.
I'm glad you're here.
Well, I will tell you, when I moved to Los Angeles, you get over the celebrity thing is very, very quickly. I mean, you're like, oh, look the way he's looking at that man. I think the rumors are true, or he's shorter than I thought. The typical things. But I was never really gaga. But I lived in Studio City, and I went for a walk around the neighborhood for the first time. And I'm taking a few steps, and I turn the corner, and there, right in front of me, just a few doors down from me, is the Brady Bunch house. And I stood there in awe. It was bigger than any celebrity I'd ever seen. And I love the Brady Bunch. I still call it the Brady Bunch Variety Hour. Now I know it changed to just the hour. But I remember it being deliciously awful at the time.
Yeah. Oh, it was absolutely. It was crazy. And years later, when they made the Brady movies, which were parodies of the Brady Bunch show,
Yeah.
Nick at Night. Well, Paramount owned the original Brady Bunch, and they put on Nick at Night. They reran the Variety Hour, all 9 episodes of it.
Wow.
And I remember very late one night, somebody called me and said, "Dude, I'm watching this thing on TV, and there's this guy dressed as Carmen Miranda doing a number with all these kids, and it's the dad from the Brady Bunch, and your name is on it, dude. What happened? You know?"
Well, you talk about how in your book you talk about how Robert Reed, was just so ornery during the making of that, and then later on you saw him on Broadway, and he actually looked back on it fondly.
Yes, I was stunned, and everything I hear about it, I said, well, Robert really had a good time. I thought he was having a miserable time. He was for so many reasons. I mean, he was having a miserable time, but he was also he had appointed himself as a surrogate parent to all the kids back when they were doing the series, because some of the parents viewed the kids as revenue streams, and he didn't like the way they were treating them. And so he kind of stepped in. And one of the reasons he never came out was he was always afraid that they would say, "Oh, the Brady dad is actually a predator," and that they could use that against him if it ever came to it. And but I mean, he had a million reasons for not coming out back then, especially if he wanted to be a leading man, which he was. You couldn't be gay, and a lot of other reasons. Himself, in his own life, living in Pasadena with his mother, this was, not conducive to being open and authentic. But he was a great guy. He was having a struggle, and also, as I say in the book, nobody told them that it was going to be a singing, dancing variety show. They thought it was going to be an hour-long version of the Brady Bunch.
That astounds me.
And they showed up and they said, "No, you're going to have to learn all these numbers, and we'll shoot them on Friday." And there's an audience. And, an audience? What? We never. I mean, the kids had an act that they toured, like at state fairs and stuff, so they knew what it was like to work with an audience. But the only person who was unfazed was Florence, because Florence's life was on Broadway and Vegas, and she's all about live performance, and God knows she's a great singer. So she was fine, but the others were all kind of trepidatious, none more so than Bob. And so one of the things I said to him early on was, well, the conceit of this show is that the Brady family has gotten a variety show. We don't know why. We don't know why. But it's the era of variety shows, and they're hosting. And he's kind of thrown into this. So you can be uncomfortable in character, because Mike Brady would be very uncomfortable in his character. And in fact, that's what we made the first episode. Mm-hmm. Would the kids actually get together and fire him as their dad, an actor to play the part, because he can't do any of this stuff. And it worked out. I mean, in its own insane way, it worked out.
It's funny because he was so reluctant to do the initial series. He didn't even want to do the initial series, and yet he kept coming back to this. Why do you think he did that?
I don't know. I think he'd been on a show called The Defenders, which was like the Law and Order of its day. It was a very powerful CBS lawyer show, and it was reality based, not like Perry Mason. It wasn't just concocted Hollywood mysteries. It was serious stuff, and I think not Eli Wallach, but some very distinguished actor was in the lead, and he was hoping that would lead him to other interesting things, and in fact it did. One of which was he played a what they used to call a cross-dresser, a transvestite, in a TV movie, and got him an Emmy nomination for that. So he was on a path to doing kind of serious, dramatic stuff, but it for one reason or another, it just didn't happen. And then this offer came along, and I thought, for whatever his reasons were, he took it. It's like Florence took it because she had married a guy named Ira Bernstein, who worked for the Schuberts, big theater producers, and they had opened a theater in L.A., and they sent him out there to run it. And they had 4 kids. And she decided she didn't want to be absent while she was raising these children. And if she had a TV series, that would keep her at home.
Sure.
And, and that's why she signed on. Little did she know that it would brand her as Carol Brady for the rest of her life.
Forever. And she was such a, first of all, she was an incredible musical talent. As you say in your book, she was the American Julie Andrews, or was Julie Andrews the American Florence Henderson,
And they actually tried to make her, the Julie Andrews. They did a picture called Song of Norway,
Yes.
which was a Broadway musical hit, but was not a hit as a movie. But there she was, looking a lot like Julie Andrews in Sound of Music, running through the Norwegian mountains in dirndls and pasty faces, singing Alive to the Mountains, just like Julie did in The Sound of Music.
I have a question about the cast, but first, there are a couple things from the book that really jumped out at me. I watched several episodes. I had to watch several episodes after listening to your book because I was just
addictive.
And the one was about Ann B. Davis being uncomfortable with Rip Taylor, and watching the two of them together was absolutely hysterical. It was like something from the Twilight Zone. And you mentioned that she didn't like working with him. In the earlier episodes, she was not supposed to like him as a character. And when she's looking at him, you can see the real contempt in her face. It's not, she wasn't acting.
She was also a strange contradiction because she was living on a Christian commune, which was, I think, primarily Lesbiterian.
Yeah.
And she came down in the bus from Colorado with the other girls, and they were busy fixing carburetors and things. I mean, they were tuning up everybody's cars. They were real hardcore. And of course, Rip is, as gay as a goose. I mean, he was all over the place. And I just think deep inside her, she resented his outness, that he was just, carrying on.
Oh, good.
Because she was very hip. But at the same time, she had abandoned Hollywood for Jesus, and so had come back, I think, to help finance the commune. And so she was walking a thin line for herself, because she was, whenever I would talk with her, she was always right on the money. There was no grass grew there. She was very smart and knew the ways of the business extremely well, and had been.
Well, she'd been in, since Love That Bob. She'd been on
since Bob Cummings, she had two big parts, playing man-hungry assistants. And of course, that was not who she was in real life. And she also was a musical talent. She was very frustrated that she didn't get to do more. She liked doing that stuff on our show. Nobody remembers that when Carol Burnett left Once Upon a Mattress on Broadway, she replaced her.
Yeah, that's right.
And then I think she did a series, and Dorothy Loudon replaced her. So she was in that pantheon of musical comedy ladies.
So the question I have is, I watched her and Rip Taylor up there together. She is dressed in her maid outfit, and Rip is dressed like Rip Taylor, and there's supposed to be a love interest between the two of them. And it leads me to the question I have about the entire cast, because, as you said, they all had a great time, even though you didn't think Robert Reed did. He told you he did. Yeah. This is actually going to be a good question for everything we discussed today. Did people know at the time that, wow, what are we doing here? This is a mess?
I think that was the subtext. I don't think anybody ever said, because we knew what we were doing. We were doing a variety show, and it could work, it could not work. A lot of variety shows didn't work. So, and Fred Silverman, who had pioneered the concept of multiple hosts, Sonny and Cher, Tony Orlando and Dawn, Donnie and Marie, these were all his ideas. So the whole idea, he initially wanted the Partridge Family, but Shirley Jones and David Cassidy didn't want to do it.
Which would have made more sense.
Yeah. So
absolutely.
But so he thought, the Brady Bunch, because the kids were doing this act, and he knew Florence, could do anything. So it was once we were there, it was like, well, let's kind of make the best of it. And of course, Sid and Marty Krofft were producing it, and they were like gung ho. And of course, Sid, who just passed recently at 96, was the original stoner. I mean, this is the guy who came up with HR Puffin Stuff and a show called Lidsville.
The names.
Saturday morning kid shows. So that's how stoned he was. And so it all seemed like a fabulously bad idea at the time.
Well, you speak of many of the bad ideas that you had in your book that have gone into legend. But there is one that you said was about one podcast away from going into the annals of time. And Bruce, we hope to be that podcast. Because what Brad and I would love to talk about with you today, also in addition to the Brady Bunch in your book, is indeed Can't Stop the Music. The epic 1980 musical about the Village People. Now, I want to ask you before we start, you left the movie before production even began. Had Valerie Perrine been cast when you were on or no?
No, she had not yet been cast.
You left early, and clearly, as you state in your book, you were really happy to dodge that bullet. Do you mind people constantly coming up and asking you about Can't Stop the Music and wanting to talk about it with you?
They don't, because my name isn't on it. So they're not aware of it unless somebody else makes them aware of it, and that could be me. But once they know I was involved, yeah, they do want to know, because it's an iconically bad movie. It's a guilty pleasure. I just looked at it. We had a screening of it for some queer film festival, oddly enough, and and I sat there with Lee Taylor Young, who has one scene in it.
Tiny
scene, and they dragged her in. Couldn't get anybody else. I mean, they're either dead or they transition to another sex.
Wow, yeah.
So they couldn't get anybody who wanted to talk about it, who was actually in it, except Lee Taylor Young. She was in it for one day. But I had been brought in. Alan Carr asked me to write it. He thought there was a movie in the making of the Village People. And so I sat down with Bronte Woodard, who was a very, very clever writer who Alan had optioned a novel from, which was a serious book. But Bronte was pretty funny, and we had to come up with this sanitized version of how the Village People got together. And it was in the original, of course, there was the real story. There was a Frenchman who came over and saw all these iconic types at the mine shaft in Greenwich Village, and decided to make a move to make a group out of all these American icons: the GI, the Indian, the cop, the construction worker. These were all very macho men, and that was how the thing started. And so, of course, we had to cast all of those people in our story, and the guy who put it together, which was not going to be a French guy, it was going to be an American guy, wound up being played by Steve Guttenberg, who himself is an icon of failure. I mean, he's he's embraced that, which I love. He owns the fact that he is who he is. So Alan decided that there had to be a glamorous woman who was his best friend, who helped him create the group. And originally it was his concept was Olivia Newton-John. And Olivia, of course, he had put into pictures with Grease, and she'd become a movie star. And so he thought she would owe him one.
Right.
And what was wonderful was the contrast. This was legitimately good. The contrast between Olivia, who was like Doris Day, for a next generation, and the Village People, who were like, scum and villainy. I mean, the craziest, sleaziest, and the contrast is what would sell the movie interestingly. And Olivia just didn't see it like that. She didn't see herself being submerged in all of that. So he began auditioning it to other leading ladies, and each time he did that, I had to come in and write a new draft, because Bronte had gone off to do something else. And after it went to Cher and Raquel Welch and a bunch of people, I kept rewriting it for. I said, this is more than the second draft. I need more money, and he fired me. But he didn't stop calling me. He kept calling me. Said, "What do you think of this? What do you think of that?" And meanwhile, he and Bronte came back, and they finally landed on Valerie Perrine, who was fabulous woman. I mean, she would do any. She was fearless. She would do anything, and beautiful, and and she could really act. And she played Lenny Bruce's wife in the Fosse picture, opposite Dustin Hoffman, and she was wonderful. And but she was also campy in Superman.
Yeah,
she could do it all, and. So I thought that's not bad, but yeah, it just got ridiculous. It just went from bad to worse. And I wasn't around for all of that, but when they were shooting it, I kept getting calls about one thing or another. I mean, there was the lead singer was Victor Willis, and he was the only straight guy in the group.
Right.
And a couple of weeks before the picture started, he decided he couldn't be in this movie because everybody would think he was gay, and he quit. And Alan got Valerie Simpson's brother, Ray Simpson, to play that part. But there was a part we had written in for Victor's wife because he insisted on it. And that was actually Debbie Allen's sister, Felicia Allen, who later became Felicia Rashad.
That's right. Yeah.
And so he fired Felicia, who spelled her name Phylicia. Oh. And we had to find somebody to do it. And Alan went into his Rolodex to find people. And he came on Altavice Davis, Sammy Davis's wife.
Sure.
And called her, and she said, yeah, I'll do it. So that's how she wound up in the picture.
That was, I mean, there's so much to talk about with Alan Carr, and you know, you appear in Jeffrey Schwartz's fabulous documentary, The Fabulous Alan Carr. But that's what Alan did. I mean, he did the same thing in Grease. He brought out his old iconic friends like Eve Arden in Grease and like Sid Caesar. And in this, he brought in June Havoc and Barbara Rush and Altavice Davis. At least he was giving him work.
They were all guests at his table. There was no question about that.
In the Rolodex.
Yeah, I mean, part of the thing in Greece, I have to give him credit, was Eve Arden and Sid Caesar and Dodie Goodman were all TV icons of the 50s and 60s.
Right.
You may be too young to remember. But Eve was our Miss Brooks, which was a huge sitcom. And Dodie Goodman was on the Jack Parr show. She was a regular on the original Tonight Show. And Sid Caesar, of course, was a TV god. I mean, they made movies about him and his show. So that was to make it feel authentically 50s, which was what Grease was.
Mm-hmm. As I was listening you talk about the different people that were discussed as being in Can't Stop the Music, the one that astonished me most, and I have to ask you, did he really think that Henry Fonda would do this film?
In his madness, yes. He was friendly. He wasn't so friendly with him as he was friendly with Shirley Fonda, who was a flight attendant that Henry Fonda married later in life. And she became a great Hollywood wife. And so that was Alan's meet, the Hollywood wives, you know, the wives of the moguls, and Jackie Collins, who wrote about them, the Hollywood wives. She wrote all of that stuff. And so that was his go-to circuit. And so Shirley Fonda was always around, and he assumed she would talk him into it, but he was having none of it. None of it at all.
It's incredible.
That's how it wound up being Russell Knipe.
Well, I'm sitting there trying to picture him in this film, and it was impossible.
I know. It was just that we were writing it. You know, he said, it's a Henry Fonda part. And I just said to Bronte, this will never happen.
It reminds me of when Jacqueline Suzanne wanting to cast Cary Grant and Frank Sinatra in Valley of the Dolls. And they're just kind of like, come again? What?
Yeah, well, excuse us. How about when Alan then had the rights to La Cage aux Folles? Mm-hmm. And before he turned it into a musical, he wanted to do it as a movie. Mm-hmm. And his dream team was Frank Sinatra and Dudley Moore. And Frank Sinatra said, I love Dudley Moore. He's really funny. Send me the script. And he got the script and he said, what, is this a joke? You want me to play some fag impresario at a drag bar? Yeah.
Not that enticing. Not that enticing.
No, not his meat. We should call Ocean's 9.5, and it'll be, much better.
Yeah. So let me tell the people who did make the cut, because this is quite a cast. As we already said, Valerie Perrine plays Samantha, Sam Simpson. We have the adorable Steve Guttenberg, as Bruce said, as Jack.
And I could have watched that opening over and over again.
Oh, I love that. That's the reason to watch the movie, is to watch Steve Guttenberg roller skating down 6th Avenue with his portable radio.
And the most beautiful smile you ever saw.
Yeah. And the dungaree shorts.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Oh, well, God.
I didn't notice.
Now, the next person I'm going to say, we just have a disclaimer. It is indeed now Caitlyn Jenner, but at this time
Yeah.
he was Bruce Jenner. So I think if we can all agree, we're going to refer to him as Bruce.
I had a very serious editor at Chicago Review Press who said, "You can't dead name Caitlyn Jenner."
Yeah.
And I said, well, two things. First of all, he was Bruce Jenner then. It's 40 years ago. He was the most famous person in the world.
Right.
After the Olympics. And he was on every Wheaties box. And to have it referred to as Caitlyn all the way through would be absurd. And secondly, I'm a gay icon. Let them come for me. What the hell do
I want to see your T-shirt.
I will call Caitlyn and ask. And I called Caitlyn. And Caitlyn said, "Look, what's wrong with this guy? I was Bruce Jenner then. That's, Bruce Jenner that didn't go away."
Yeah, I'm glad you guys brought it up. Before we were starting this, I was like, okay, how do we touch this? So I'm glad it came up.
Yeah.
No, I think it's important to point it out just to get out of there. So, yes, Bruce Jenner is Ron White. And Paul Sands, who I was like, oh, Paul is so cute, so adorable.
That's adorable, yeah.
What happened to Paul Sands? He's
like 85 now, and he's still he's still cute, and he lives at the beach, and he's a difficult guy. I mean, I'm very fond of him, but he is a difficult guy, and he had a couple of runs at TV series, and they didn't work, and it was very disheartening, I think. And I think he just retreated, into writing and other things.
Paul Sands and Friends and Lovers, I remember from
that was right. That
the early
was
70s. He had his name in the title. He's in
I know that was part of the deal, and it just didn't take.
But my two favorite people in this movie, and I think are probably everybody's, are two people that you created these characters. And of course it is the incomparable Tammy Grimes.
Yeah.
And the wonderful, wonderful, and friend of this podcast, we have talked about her, Marilyn Sokol, as her assistant, as Lulu. We talked about Marilyn in Foul Play. And those characters, that was some of your writing, right? That was left over from your time?
That was some of my writing. I suggested it, that there would be that element of it, because I thought it would fit right in. If our star Valerie had an agent, because Valerie was a big deal model. That character is a big deal model. And if she had a big deal model's agent, there wasn't, I don't think Nuclear Winter, what we call Anna Wintour, was around. But it was largely based on Kay Thompson, who wrote Eloise and was Liza's mentor. And a few other people who were kind of like very grand who fit that. But it's very close to Kay Thompson in Funny Face, where she is playing the Vogue editor who runs the magazine. And Marilyn would be her long-suffering assistant, which was going to be played by Pat Ast, who was a phenomenal creature who she worked for Halston, and she was in Halston's front office, and she looked like an exploding tomato. She was a large woman with big frizzy red hair, and she was from Brooklyn, and so she talked like from Brooklyn, but Brooklyn with a lot of airs, and she was hilarious, and she was a big fixture of parts. She's in a bunch of movies in small parts, and one big part, a picture called Reform School Girls, where is the matron of the jail, and so good, so bad, so what? That is anyway, but Alan she was high maintenance, and Alan just said, no, we need somebody who's actually an actress who could actually play opposite Tammy Grimes, who we really wanted.
Did you push for Tammy Grimes? Was Tammy Grimes?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I said, because who has that kind of style?
Right.
And Tammy was absolutely perfect for that. And she gets, to me, the biggest laughs in the movie. And Marilyn was wonderful as a sidekick. And she was playing the man-hungry assistant, the Ann B. Davis part, actually. Yeah. But she was more contemporary and more very, from that school of that kind of girl of that period.
My favorite scene, I think, in the entire film, well, I have a couple, but other than YMCA, but the scene where Tammy Grimes gets her fingernail caught in the dial. Did you write that scene? It's so
yes, actually.
Funny.
It was, yeah. Yeah,
she's so great. You wonder why didn't, I know she was big on Broadway, the unsinkable Molly Brown. She was a legendary Broadway actress. It makes you go, wow, why didn't she do more films? Because she's just so wonderful.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, she had a legendarily bad TV show. I mean, Paul's Sand show ran longer than hers. Hers may have been canceled after the second episode. I don't remember. There was a famous show that was canceled during the first broadcast, but I think it was that. But she and Debbie Reynolds tied for having the quickest cancellation of a star driven show.
Both Molly Browns. Both Molly Browns. By the way.
Yeah, they were both exactly. They both played Molly Brown. What a very good point.
Unsinkable.
I don't know. You know, it's a lot of times they think somebody's just too unusual and it's just not going to happen, or the right vehicle doesn't come along. And she was happy in the theater, you know, and she had a daughter and she was raising, Amanda Plummer.
Yes,
terrific actress, so you know she stayed in her theater lane where she was revered.
Oh, perfectly respectable.
Yeah,
perfectly respectable.
Yeah, I want to jump a little to the premiere. And I don't know if that's where you watched it with Bet.
No, we went to the movies. Bet and I went to the movies on Hollywood Boulevard at what is now the El Capitan. That then was called the Hollywood Paramount, and it opened it opened the same weekend as a bunch of other things, and
of course she loved it.
Oh, we screamed. No, at the end of it, she turned to me and said, "I'll stop the music." We just couldn't believe it. There were some other people who were there who were with us actually, and they got a kick out of. Alan had cast some local village people. There's an act, I can't remember, we called her the bread lady, but she's got a big loaf of French bread and she's hitting people with it.
Yes.
There were a bunch of village people, literal village people who staggered in and out of scenes that were shot in the village when they were in New York starting the picture. And of course, the people we were all recognized all of them, and would go, "Oh my God, look, it's Vito!" You know, that kind of.
Well, that's one of the things I love about the film is I love movies that give me, or a time capsule that give me a real taste of an era. And since New York does not resemble that at all anymore,
right? Exactly.
It's so exciting to go and see the Village in the 70s, when it was with all the kooks and wonderfully eccentric people. And that's such a wonderful thing about this film is it gives us all those eccentrics, most of them who were in this movie. But the most eccentric, I think we got to talk about in the what the hell happened here is the director of this opus.
Yes, you beat me to the punch.
Ida Morgenstern herself, Nancy Walker.
Nancy Walker.
How the hell did that come about, Bruce?
Well, Nancy was Alan's client. Alan was a manager. He had Anne Margaret. That was how basically he had made it in Hollywood. But then he had all these other clients who signed him. Some of them not for terribly long. Petula Clark was with him for a while, and Marvin Hamlish, and Nancy was with him for a bit. And she wanted to direct. Because she had no trouble getting parts, as Nancy Walker, and she certainly was making money as the bounty picker-upper, commercial. But she wanted to direct, and so he got her a pilot to direct. It was called Madam Sheriff, and it was Conchata Ferrell, who was a character actress who biggest thing was on. 2.5 Men.
2.5 Men.
Yeah. But that was much later. But she was off Broadway in the Hot L Baltimore and had a following from that. And the pilot didn't work. And Alan got her the directing job on that pilot. And that pilot didn't work, but the producers then turned it into She's the Sheriff with Suzanne Summers, which had a syndicated run for a while. Meanwhile, Can't Stop the Music happened, and so nobody wanted to direct it. I mean, nobody who would deal with Alan, I think, wanted to direct it.
Scorsese said no. Did he? He was.
Yes, Scorsese.
New York burned him. Yeah, hard pass.
Not only did he say no, but he sent guys to tell Alan. Nunzio and Fabrizio came over and said, "Marty's not doing the picture." No, I mean, it was one of the beginning of a lot of Alan happened 10 years later with the Oscars, people who he thought were his best friends all suddenly didn't, were not interested in working with him. And so I think he decided this was a brilliant idea for Nancy. And I don't know, nobody could talk him out of it. And she said yes. Like, so often somebody said yes, because I think she viewed it as a challenge. And also it was a musical, and she had done so many musicals when she was at Metro as a sidekick, and of course on Broadway.
Yeah.
So she figured she'd be comfortable doing this, I'm sure.
Well, I know that she directed some episodes of Mary Tyler Moore. She directed, I mean, she was directing television, but to take on a major motion picture musical is it's astounding.
I know. It was quite, at the time, I think it was.
Seemed like a bad idea at the time.
Looked at it with a raised eyebrow.
Yeah.
But she had done that directing stuff. A lot of that directing stuff is when a show is a TV series is a hit, and everybody's money goes up every year, and the overhead gets higher and higher. And so one of the things that they do is when there are actors who are on the show who want to direct, they let them direct it because they know the show and they've seen other directors do it, and so that they pay them a director's salary instead of raising their fee as an actor. And that, although I don't know that was the case with Nancy, I suspect it was. And that happens a lot. And it just came up in the new GGA contract, where the Directors Guild, where they put a cap on how many cast members of a show can direct a show in a season.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Because they were putting directors out of work.
Yeah, of
course. And that became a negotiating point in the recent contract negotiations. Go no.
I think of Nancy Walker and her babushka directing The Village People. It's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling.
I know.
I know. It's something else that I was sitting there trying to picture as I'm watching the film. And it was next to impossible. It was as much of an acid trip as the film itself.
Well, what I remember, I was on the set briefly, was I thought the impossible dilemma of this woman who knew everything about comedy trying to teach guys who didn't even sing live on the albums or in personal appearances a lot of times, and who had, teaching them how to be funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I thought she must have gone home and banged her head against a sink all night because.
Well, now this is true. I think she did not direct the YMCA number, probably the most iconic number in this film.
That's the best part of the film. No, they came after they'd shot the movie. They came back and they brought in a video team that did MTV work, and they shot the video at Metro in the Esther Williams swimming pool.
Amazing.
And it's really good because it's like an MTV video.
It is, and it's such a call out to Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. Is there anybody here for love? And for people who don't know, who haven't watched, can't stop the music, please watch it. The entire scene takes place in the YMCA.
Yeah,
and there are semi-clad and totally unclad men just roaming. It's so gay. I can't believe it got through. It just amazes me. This movie is so gay, and yet nobody's talking about it. And that's what's so fascinating to me about this film.
That was The Village People. I mean, to this day.
Exactly.
Do you think people who were doing YMCA in the stands of a football game actually know about the Village People and actually know the story of the Village People? No.
And how many weddings did they play YMCA? Yeah. And
the music became iconic, and they removed all of the gayness from it. Yeah. It's hard to remove it from Macho Man, but it's just funny. It's just a funny parody of Macho Men.
I live in a plaza in a little town in Spain. We have 30,000 people here. And last week there was a party on the plaza, all Spaniards, none of them speak English. They were all 60 and older, and they were doing YMCA, the whole thing.
It's like the Macarena, it's
yes. Doesn't matter where you go.
Yeah.
But with this thing, there was another, so I think it's important to point out, in New York City at this time, filming at the same time, there was another very notorious, it's so funny, the same year you have these two notorious, air quotes, gay films. You have Can't Stop the Music shooting, and you have none other than Cruising shooting. The same time. And weren't there some protests that the protesters got mixed up, Bruce, about where they were protesting and where they weren't?
It probably, I don't remember that. And
I
I
thought I read
wasn't
somewhere
there.
that-
I wasn't in New York when they were
I think
shooting.
I read somewhere that they were because there were protests about cruising.
Yeah, the cruising protests I know about, yeah.
And so they got mixed up one time and they were protesting outside of the set for You Can't Stop the Music. And Nancy Walker came out and said, "Boys, you got the wrong movie. It's down the street."
Probably happened. I'm not. I can't debunk it.
There's a scene in the film where Valerie Perrine's character does a milk commercial like I've never, ever seen before. Is this a holdover from when Olivia Newton-John was going to play the part?
The idea was the song is the milkshake. It's on the album. That was the idea. Was she was so pure that she could sell milk, that she was a spokesperson for milk, and that she brought in the Village People to work with her on this commercial, who were the opposite of all of that, and that stayed in. I think it stayed in the movie because the idea was still the same. That she wasn't portrayed as I mean, Valerie didn't come to the picture with Olivia's good girl, qualifications and all that. So, so it didn't quite have the potency that it would have had if it had been Olivia. But I mean, the idea was still kind of like, we're going to sell milk. We're so wholesome. We're going to sell milk. I mean, it's silly.
It's just it's mind-boggling. It's
I
mind-boggling.
know. And Jacques wrote a song, Milkshake.
Yeah, no, it's a great song. I love the songs. I mean, besides the iconic the songs that the Village People did, there's some wonderful songs in here. I love the one that at night, Magic Night. Magic Night. It's a wonderful sequence too.
Music and
yeah, it's fantastic. It's
yeah,
fantastic.
there's some good stuff there. I mean, Jacques. And I wrote a Village People album after this, after the debris had been cleared away. I started writing lyrics for a show in Paris at the Crazy Horse that Jacques wrote for every year. And then he said, then we wrote for Eartha Kitt, and we had a big disco hit with her, and we did an album for Eartha. And then he brought me on the Village People album, where we had a notorious song called "Sex Over the Phone," which was a big deal then, banned by the BBC, which of course it went to #1 on Capital One and Radio Caroline, the alternative radio in Britain.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a big success with that album, every place but the US, of course, because they never would. In the disco revolution, they burned all the Village People records.
Well, I was going to say that's one of the less fortuitous things, among the many less fortuitous things that happened to this film, was while it was in production, disco was murdered, basically. Disco demolition.
We were behind the curve.
Yeah, exactly.
In Australia, we were in the sweet spot. Australia disco was huge, and the picture was a gigantic hit, and didn't make its money back in Australia. But it was every place else was okay. But in the States, there was an active disco death going on. So,
right.
Could you feel that was happening? Airplane came out in 1980, and there's a scene in Airplane where it hits the antenna, and they're saying "disco forever." And I remember the audience standing up and applauding when that happened. And that was the same year as this film. Was there the feeling that this was happening, that disco was dying?
Yeah, but nobody was admitting it.
Yeah.
I mean, they were in too deep.
Too deep, yeah.
Wasn't Alan's original idea for the title of this Disco Land, where the music never ends?
That is correct.
So, thank God they didn't go out with that title. So yeah, there was the big premieres here in Hollywood. There was a premiere, I think it was at Schwab's, and did he have a red carpet going down Sunset Boulevard or something like that?
No, I don't think he had that, but he did have the billboard. There's the billboard. There's now the Netflix billboard that was built for that, because it had a platform, and so that they could get everybody up on the red carpet on the platform and do all the media up there. And then since it subsequently had a platform, it was somebody did I forget who, some phone company did a stunt where it was like Survivor. They had a bunch of people up on the platform, living on the platform,
Jeez.
and the one who could stay the longest was the one who won the big money. I forget what it was, but that put the whole thing, that billboard on the map, and now Netflix has it. And
Yes,
I don't think the platform's there, but the billboard's still there. But I think the theater, it was either. I think it was at the Chinese or the Paramount or one of those big theaters where they actually saw. I mean, I did not go, but I think I was away actually. Anyway,
yeah, I think the New York one was at Lincoln Center, in the fountain, of course.
good then.
Well, I'd love to talk about the legacy and the stats, but Brad, was there something you wanted to mention about the film or the podcast?
Absolutely. As Tony said, please watch this film. If you haven't seen it, it's delightful in its own way. And if you're enjoying this podcast, please rate and review right there on the app that you're listening to. There should be a button where you can just do that, as well as follow if you're not doing so. And most importantly, if you enjoy guests like Bruce or the things we talk about, tell a friend. And to just emphasize once again, rate and review and let people know that you enjoy the show so that others will say, I want to check it out too.
Do we know how much money, you can't stop the money. How much money did the film? Do you have those figures, Brad?
Oh, I did.
Well, I know it cost. Didn't it cost something like $20 million?
And it made $8 million. It made $8 million, I believe.
I think it made less. I think it made $2 million. Doesn't that sound about right to you, Bruce? About $2?
Yeah, it does. But of course, those are $1980.
Right, exactly. And needless to say, the reviews weren't great. In fact, now, is this true? I've read this, I've heard this, and I haven't. It, alongside Xanadu, was the reason that the Golden Raspberry Awards were created. Did you ever hear that?
No, I didn't realize that, but I certainly know about them. But I wouldn't be surprised.
It won the first one, I believe. So that I always heard that, which I was wondering if that was an urban myth or if that was accurate.
Let's say it's accurate. That's more fun.
I think that's true. That's true. So yes, I love them. I love a fictionalized version of the formation of the Village People. How could you not love this movie?
That's right. But then Xanadu bombed also, so Xanadu, which later became the title of the musical. That was a huge bomb too, and that one had Olivia.
Yes, exactly. She turned down this one to do that one. So Bruce, this has been such a delight having you here talking about your book, talking about these movies, talking about the Brady Bunch Variety Hour. What is going on for you now? Because you're always working on something. Is there anything that you care to share that's happening that?
Well, I actually have written a play about the Oscars, about all the Oscar shows I did, but I kind of concentrated on one, and that was, of course, the one in the book. The first Oscar show I did, which Alan produced, and of course, it changed his life. And I always thought that would be a good subject for a play, and so I wrote it with Nathan Lane in mind as Alan. And Nathan said, "I love this, but I'm doing Death of a Salesman." I said, well, I can't fight that. So he said, "You should play it." And I said, "That's what I always have wanted to hear." We're doing a couple of readings of it. We're going to do a fundraising reading in August in LA for Celebration Theater, which is a gay theater company.
Oh, great.
And I will play it, and hopefully I will round up some interesting people to play all the other parts. And it's a funny play, but it's also sad because it talks about what happened when you have a big disaster. And it's not funny.
So to tell the people, the Oscar ceremony you're talking about is the notorious 1989 ceremony with Snow White, but you did not write that musical number.
No, I didn't write that. That was actually Steve Silver. I'm in San Francisco right now, and Steve Silver, Beach Blanket Babylon. Alan was pixelated by it, and he brought down Snow White, and who was the star of the show, and created a number about Snow White returning to Hollywood after all these years and encountering new Hollywood and old Hollywood. And Steve Silver came down, and they put it together, and he borrowed from his own show and came up with some stuff for his new show. And so I was not involved with any of that except to say, I think maybe might change this. Maybe you could change that. Otherwise, I did Hildy Parks and I wrote the rest of the show. And
some wonderful stuff too. I love the Carrie Fisher and Martin Short coming out in the same dress as.
Yeah,
which was Martin. But Martin says, "Carrie, you have thousands of dresses. I have 4, or something like that." And Lucy and Bob Hope, that wonderful, Lucy's last appearance. There's our Lucy moment, Brad. Mm-hmm. Just wonderful, wonderful. I think I want to mention to people too that there is also a fabulous documentary about Bruce called Get Bruce. Isn't that right? When did that happen, Bruce?
1999. Way back.
Wow.
Way back.
Wow.
A friend of mine named Andy Keene, who ran a trailer house, which is where they make coming attraction trailers, and called Kaleidoscope. And he wanted to do a documentary. And he said, I think somebody should do a documentary about your life. And I said, I do too, but Fellini just died. So I don't know who's up to it. And he said, well, I'll take a shot. And so I said, well, if you can get all these people that I work with to talk about their deconstruction, go for it. And he did. He talked Bette Midler, Billy Crystal, Whoopi Goldberg, Robin Williams into doing big chunks of it. And then a whole bunch of other people. And we shot backstage and some things. And Robin and my mother are the stars of the movie.
Love that.
My mother was fabulous in this movie.
I was going to say, your mother's the highlight of that.
She was the greatest. She lived to 95, and her joke was the first 90 years are easy. The second 90 are a bitch.
Well, they need to do a second part of that. They can call it Get Bruce Again. Really? Get Bruce Again.
I said we're working on it. It's called Had Bruce with a much larger.
There's a reason for those Emmys, Bruce. There's a reason for those Emmys. Brad, is there anything else you'd like to say to our wonderful host before we bid him farewell and on his way so he can enjoy his life?
Other than a big, huge thank you. I mean, I could go on. This could be a mini series, but
well, thanks.
I used to interview authors every week, and I got to say, I was not one to always praise the book, so I don't want people to think I'm doing this just to be nice. One of my favorite things about your book is you have so many asides that I think if it was anyone else, it would have been annoying. And each one was absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I had a lot of footnotes in it, which are not on the audio. They may be now. I'm not sure. But I was referring to things that happened years ago and people who were popular years ago. And I thought a younger audience needed to have a little, if they weren't sure who Jane Mansfield was, or, some of those names. Of course, Mariska Hargitay, her daughter, has brought her back into the limelight with a documentary. But I thought I owed it to this audience to explain things. So there are a lot of asides, yes.
Okay. Well, thank you once again. And listeners, read the book.
Yeah. What I love about the book, Bruce, as a film historian, I love the fact that you give dates. I love that. When you reference something, you give the date it happened. And it just delights my little film historian heart when you do that. Thank you.
It seems crucial in this case because
it does, but it's respectful. I think.
They don't remember the 70s. You have to know this actually happened on exactly this date.
Go out and get the book, download it, listen to the Audible. The book is called It Seemed Like a Bad Idea at the Time, now available in paperback. Also, Get Bruce is available on all streaming platforms, on YouTube, on Prime, on everything. So watch it. Yeah. Bruce, it has been such a joy to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for doing this. You're a real doll, as they would say in New Jersey.
I'll take it.
Brad is, I don't have anything else to say, so I guess there's only one thing left to say, but especially now, I don't want to say it. So let's not say goodbye. Let's say au revoir.
There you go.
No, for a change, I don't want to say it, but I'm going to do it anyway. Let's say goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you, Bruce.